All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Hopefully that's got that up for everyone. Hi, Holly. You want to pop two-word? Hi. If you want to put a two-word check-in into the chat, feel free to do so. Let us know how you're feeling and just pop yourself on mute when you're ready. Hi, Candace.
Hello.
All right, let's get started. So my name's Catherine. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm a mother's mental health mentor and a life coach, and I'm your host for today's masterclass. And to start with, I'd just like to give you an invitation to settle into your body. So really connecting with your body and come out of your head so that you can really receive what you need to from this masterclass. Because in our body is where us feminine beings naturally work from. I know that we have been conditioned to get caught up in our head and to be doing all of the time and to be in a space of busyness, but our wisdom is held in our body, in our hearts, in our womb space. And if that sounds a little bit woo-woo for you, just stick with me for a moment, take a few breaths, and then we'll get onto the juicy stuff. So if you'd like to, you can close down your eyes and pop your hands anywhere on your body where it feels comfortable to do so, maybe your heart space or your belly, and just take a deep breath or two. So you can land into your heart space where we want to lead from as a mama. And when you feel like you're really ready to receive, open up your eyes again. So many years ago, my dad, funnily enough, gifted me a book called How Would Love Respond? It's a book by Kirk Ashley, and I'll get the link put into the chat. It's a super great book. It's not about parenting, but it's has some really good wisdom in it. And I've often got that in the back of my mind, that question, how would love respond? Now, fortunately, as humans, we run 95% of the time from our subconscious mind, and that literally still blows my mind that that's the case. But it means that our old patterning and the ways that we've always done life is often in the driver's seat, even if we really desire to show up differently. And after 20, 30, 40 years of being a certain way, and possibly even a very similar way to how our parents showed up in the world, it takes a lot of time and effort to show up differently and to notice our triggers and to inquire into our patterns, to heal our wounds and to build new habits, and to remember that really powerful question, how would love respond? So today is going to be short and sweet, but the mums who make the real changes are the ones that are in it for the long haul, to create a new life, a new way to do life, and aren't here for a quick fix or a little red pill or a one-stop shop, because no one has all of your answers, only you. And it's also super courageous to reach out for support to access your own wisdom. So I'm really honoring all of you mamas here today. So let's get started. A few housekeeping bits and pieces. If you can stay on mute, I'd really appreciate that. That allows everybody else to listen and you to have any kids or anything else going on in the background for you. There's a chat box probably at the bottom of your screen, depending if you're on a computer or a phone. And if you'd like to put any comments or thoughts in there as we're going through, know that your words are medicine and wisdom for everybody else. Often you aren't the only one that are thinking the thoughts that come up for you. So sharing is beautiful. There's also a hand up option again at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to put your hand up and I can unmute you and you can ask a question throughout if you have an urgent question. Otherwise, there's Q&A time at the end. So give me a show of hands. Do you experience morning battles with your kids or bitching hours in the afternoons or the evenings? I think most of you have got your, show of hands. Love it. Yeah. So you're not the only ones. We all experience it. And when I had babies and toddlers, it was definitely a case of witching hour with cluster feeds and unsettled hours as the sun went down. But now with school age kids, the afternoons can easily turn into nagging and impatience and raised voices layered with guilt. And that's just the mama side of things. And it feels quite fitting to call it bitching hour. And there's also the tired children. They resist homework, there's sibling arguments, everyone's drawn to disassociate with screens, and it can be a right challenge. And stressful mornings and irritable afternoons are not only unpleasant, it can actually become quite damaging to our mental health as mamas, and it sets up our kids for failure. So angst in the morning for children actually puts their brain and ours in fight or flight mode and their nervous system in a heightened arousal. And neither of those things lend themselves to effective learning or the things that we expect of them: cooperation, ability to sit still once they're at school, calmness, being considerate to siblings and other classmates, just to name a few. Like, we put a lot of expectations, not only on ourselves, but also of our children. And conflict or disharmony in the afternoons is just as troubling. The most common detriment is that clear path to a challenging bedtime. So if children don't feel like their buckets are full in the afternoons or the evenings, if it hasn't been nourishing and a calm time for them. So they escalate their demands for love and attention. Just one more story, just one more cup of water. I just need to go to the toilet. And they genuinely find it harder to fall asleep. When our hearts and our heads and our bodies feel in turmoil, it is really hard to relax. When you've got adrenaline circulating your system, it's not really conducive to restful sleep for them and for us. And I have 100% experienced plenty of disorganization, disconnection, dysregulation in the mornings and in the afternoons in my household. And of course, as a mama, we become plagued with guilt when this becomes our way of life. And before I realized that my patterns of external validation were getting in the way of harmonious motherhood, I would stay up late at night. I wouldn't prioritize any time for myself in the morning or in the afternoon for that matter. So I'd be looking for my cup to be filled through, external validation, entertainment, connection with external sources, so work or social media, and staying up late trying to fill my bucket with unhealthy, ineffective strategies meant that I had tired eyes in the morning and an unfulfilled heart, and I was cranky. And I would try to parent and look on Facebook or answer work emails whilst trying to get the kids ready in the mornings. And I do the same in the afternoons while I ranted at my kids that the school bags weren't unpacked, that their shoes were all over the floor, that their homework hadn't been started. And I know that I'm not alone in this experience. So we're here to create more harmony in our household through self-regulation tools and be the change that we want to see in the world, or at least within our family. So I'm going to talk about one of my clients, Mel, who gave me permission.
I went into it
thinking that. Not ready for her to speak yet. I have permission to speak about her experience, and her environment was similar to mine at home. Her kids wouldn't listen, instructions weren't being followed, there was raised voices, and everyone felt stressed. However, she had different underlying causes. She really wanted to please everyone, and she couldn't stand to see anybody else suffering. So even though she wanted to instill independence in her children, she also had this desire to be liked and to save everyone, which meant that she picked up the slack. After she'd yelled at the kids 27 times to do their morning tasks, she would then go and do them. Her mornings looked like checking the library bags, had the library books in them, repacking lunch boxes that were light on because the kids had rushed to do them and didn't get enough food, filling half empty water bottles, running back inside to get the hat that was forgotten, the toy for show and tell that was forgotten, that was still sitting on the table, along with all the dirty cereal bowls that never made it into the sink, even though she asked time and time again. And there was certainly no time for her to stop and chill and have a cup of tea and really connect in with her kids before they went off to school or to kindy. And resentment flowed. Overwhelm was real when I met her. So we worked on her personality patterns and her childhood wounds. And without that underlying anxiety and need to please, cooperation just naturally happened more easily for her. And we also sorted out some practical aspects as well. So her favorite is a morning to-do list on the fridge, and her and the kids can see it, and the kids can tick off the things that they're doing. And that gives her a little bit more time and space to connect in calmly. So I'll just let you listen to her real quickly.
Was all going to be about me stuff, about my feelings and about my thoughts or emotions or my hurdles, and just how much it has touched every relationship, every person I interact with, my children, my friends, my partner, my in-laws, my parents, and how all these little tiny lessons have sort of filtered down into all of those interactions. And I never realized that thing that you mentioned about permission slips. I never realized how effective that can be, like with me being more vulnerable and me asking for what I need. Well, then that is actually giving permission to the people around me to do the same. And that I feel like I have grown in so many different areas and so many different relationships in such a positive way. And I can see what I've learned helping other people. That's probably been the biggest takeaway that I wasn't expecting. I went into.
So I guess that just explains how when we do something differently, when we show up in a calm way, when we explain what we need and what we want from a calm place, from a place of peace, from our heart, rather than from fear or anxiety or stress, then that really filters down to everyone around us, including our kids. So Mel went from kids not listening, rushing, yelling, nearly always late, leaving the house, and overcome her, I'm not good enough, I'm not performing enough, my kids' behavior reflects me as a person and my worth, to a place of calm. And then her kids just followed on. So just quickly, another client from an outside view, same shit show in her house. Her underlying fear, though, was getting in trouble. So getting in trouble was stored in her body from childhood as a really scary place to be. And she was so worried about her kids arriving to high school late, not having the right socks, forgetting their homework, that she wasn't able to let the mornings flow. So uncovering her childhood fears that, unbeknownst to her, had traveled into adulthood in her subconscious, we were able to do some inner child work and release those fears of getting into trouble or not doing the right things. And she learned to be okay with the natural consequences of kids going slow and missing the bus and being late, and knowing that it wasn't her that got roused on by the teacher. And even though she had a rational knowing of that, like her body had stored that fear of, we're not doing the right thing, we're going to be in trouble, I've got to rush everyone. And once she could let that go and use some tools to really calm herself, then her mornings became peaceful as well. So if you can relate to any of those stories, or maybe any of those fears or concerns that might be underlying your stress in the morning, feel free to pop a comment into the chat. So fight or flight mode is where we end up when we get into a space of anxiety or heightened arousal, when we start to think about stories that are going on in our head and we create an experience in our body that is a stress experience. So we end up in this fight or flight mode, and we can't rationalize, essentially. So sometimes we think, my kids aren't listening to me, they're doing this against me, I'm not going to make it to work in time, the kids aren't going to make it to school in time. We start to get into this elevated state. So it can be really helpful when we feel like we're in that state to ask ourselves some questions around, is this true? So thinking about the things that might be going on in my head, my kids won't listen. Is it true? My kids won't do as they're told. Is it true? And really anchoring to what's happening in the situation, not the feeling that you've conjured up in your body. So who would like a few tools to pop into their motherhood kit to create some calm, some harmony in the mornings and the afternoons in their household? So I'm going to share 3 of my favorites for down regulation. And these are great to settle you from that heightened state where everything feels unmanageable and the shrill mama voice comes up, or criticisms and threats are raining down. So these are going to be in your ebook, so you don't need to remember them or write them down. And if you would like, you can do them with me. So the first one is called box breaths. So this is just taking a pause and taking some breaths. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and then hold for 4. And if you can, doing it 4 times in those moments to really settle yourself. And in that moment, while you're breathing, you can't yell, because while you're breathing, you can't yell. So you can't be sharing with your children your anxiety or your stress in a way that doesn't feel good for you or that doesn't feel kind. So breathing in for 4, holding for 4, and then out for 4, and then holding for 4. And going around in that box with your breaths, just for a few breaths to create safety in your body. And if you're able to put things down in that moment, popping your hands on your heart or hand on heart, hand on womb space, that really helps to create a feeling of safety in your body. Because when we're in that anxious state, our body doesn't actually feel safe. So the next one, if you've got past the point where you can take some deep breaths is not going to work, or you feel like you've got a lot of energy already pent up, somatic shaking release. So this is shaking the parts of your body that hold the most tension. So it might be your head, might need to give your head a big shake, might be throwing your arms out and flicking away the tension, or maybe stomping your feet. So emotions are energy in motion, and they need to move sometimes. And often we automatically do that through yelling. And yes, yelling works. It gets out that emotion, but it also harms our children and then flicks us into a guilt cycle. So our kids are in a fear cycle and we're in a guilt cycle, and it's not really a great place to be. So using the somatic shaking to release that energy that has every right to be there and has every right to flow through our body. There's no point in stuffing it down, because it'll come out. Energy does its own thing. Emotions do their own thing. So they either fester inside and create more stress and more angst, or they come out of us in ways that we are often not proud of. When we scream at our kids, it's not really a moment that we're proud of. So then the third tool is the third eye massage. So third eye is up here in the middle of your forehead. So this is putting your ring finger and your middle finger over the bridge of your nose and up between your eyebrows and over your brows and out into your temples. And then holding there with some slight pressure, and repeat. And if you can close your eyes, it will be much more powerful. So the third eye pressure point is often where we hold a lot of tension when we're stressed, especially if we're a frowner. I'm a frowner. And this practice can really prevent a tension headache beginning before we've even got our kids off to school. And if you feel like you need to, it can be really powerful to add in an affirmation, a release, or a store. So it might be, let it go, let my frustration flow, I'm releasing my frustration. Or it might be, I'm enough, I can speak calmly, they are only children, just breathe. Whatever feels good in the moment, whatever feels natural and what you need in that moment, let that flow, either aloud or in your head as you're doing those practices. And in that moment of pause where we do those short practices, like literally it can be 10 seconds to a minute, we can allow our nervous system to feel at ease, and our survival brain can switch back to our logical adult brain so that we can parent from a place of love, and also from a place where we want to parent from. We're making that choice that we want to parent kindly and calmly and rationally, rather than being in that survival place where our body just takes over and we end up behaving in ways that we don't like. So, bonus tool, this one is really cool. It's a preventative tool, and it can be done anywhere, but I like to do it as I wake up in the morning. So giving yourself 3 minutes before you get out of bed to really have a think about your why. Reminding yourself of your why is so powerful. Why do you want to stay calm in the mornings? So is it to reduce your own guilt? Is it to maintain more family connection? Is it to help your child be calm so that they can behave better at school? Is it to feel happier? Because we all deserve to feel safe and respected and loved in our house. Whatever it is for you, everyone's why is going to be different. And when we know our why, and when we remind ourselves of our why we're doing something, it can really help us stay on track and be motivated to achieve that. So really imagine in this moment being the type of mom that instead of yelling being her automatic default, that her spontaneous reaction to her kids escalating is calm breaths. If that was you, would you be proud? So these tools are absolute gold when they're consistently applied, and then they become embodied. So when we do something over and over again, it becomes default. So you probably know now what your default is when your kids start to escalate. It might be that you escape and you numb and you go somewhere else out of the room, or you yell because you've done it over and over again. And that's what's been stored in your body as the way to do life when this experience happens. So if we can continue to apply these practices, then they can slowly become your default. So when we're in the moment of overwhelm and chaos, the root cause of what's happening for you, like we discussed earlier, Mel's underlying cause was the fear of discomfort, wanting to save other people. That's going to sing out to you if you don't give it some airtime and healing. So these tools will work, but you will still have that underlying, whatever it is, cause for you, sort of coming up to the surface and triggering you. And childhood is the most common time that those protective or survival strategies are developed. So they likely now seem detrimental. So if it's yelling or criticizing, rushing, disassociating, or numbing, you know what I mean by numbing, right? Like excessive socials, alcohol, mindlessly watching TikTok, constant conflict, overeating, or other unhealthy patterns. There's so many addictions and numbing patterns. That's a story for another time. So those things become our normal. And to a 3 or 5 or 10-year-old self, like you as that child, those patterns made sense because they kept us feeling safe. So expressing what we wanted by yelling, possibly got us what we wanted. If we yelled or we kept going with something, then we might have got what we wanted. Or perhaps it's that disassociation or numbing or hiding. When there was conflict, or something wasn't going how we wanted it to, did we hide? And those patterns made sense to the child version of us, and they probably worked, and they get filed away in our subconscious, and then they continue to happen now in adulthood unless we go back and we reprogram that. Bringing awareness to these parts of us that we really often want to hide away from because we're ashamed, embarrassed, confused by the way that we act and behave, and then really reparenting and creating new habits reduces the intensity of those childhood experiences, and they have less negative impact on you in your current moment. So our frustrations and fears and triggers will continue to come up. That's life. But when we do the work on ourselves and looking at where they've come from and healing those moments, then there's less intensity. And when we resist them less, these tools that I've shared with you are going to be much easier to apply. So there's no point in hating on yourself if you start to feel stress or anxiety or a heightened arousal and you start to yell at your kids. As soon as you catch yourself, just apply the tool. Don't need to berate yourself. Just apply the tool. Take your breaths or shake it out. As soon as you realize you need those tools, apply them. Let me flick on with my slides. So like I said, end result is happy, calm mum, if we can use those tools in the moment. And of course, happy, calm child, because we lead the way. So who is feeling courageous? Because yes, this work is not a walk in the park, uncovering the parts of us that we've hidden for decades and exploring events or triggers from our past that have left lasting memories and protective behaviors. It's hard. It's much harder than blaming the kids for the chaos, but it's also damn rewarding on the other side to feel the liberation and the empowerment of unshackling from our past and our past behaviors, and to shift from the undesirable parts of us being in the driver's seat and really allowing the loving, playful, patient, confident parts of us to shine and to allow our kids to be in that vibe, to follow our lead of calmness and regulating ourselves. Because as we regulate ourselves, our children are watching. As we yell and scream, our children are watching. So what do we want them to take into adulthood? So if you've been trying to control your kids' behavior or your own from a place of shame or blame, pleading or begging without understanding the lack of realization that we can't rationalize in a state of trigger, in a state of survival brain, then it's no wonder that you remain stressed. Because when we try and parent from that survival brain place, we can't do it in a rational, calm way because our body's telling us to survive. It's not telling us to calm and be kind. And if you're trying to give and be a good mom from an empty cup, again, it's no wonder that it felt hard, because we have to give from ourselves as a parent. So if our cup is empty and we're trying to give from it, like there's nothing to give. So when we can fill ourselves up with these tools and allow ourselves to feel good in our body, then we can give to our children from that space of calmness.
If I didn't step up and take control of how I was feeling and reach out for help and support when I did, I feel like I would be possibly back on medication, still visiting psychologists on a weekly, fortnightly basis. I was feeling pretty low before I started working with Catherine. I was scared. I felt like my marriage was falling apart. And yeah, just, I guess could say scared. Thought that I was going backwards within my mental health journey, but I'm so far from that place. It's not funny. I'm so happy. I'm crying now, but honestly, my mental health has never, ever been as good as it is now.
So that's beautiful, Kirsten, that I worked with earlier this year to support her through some parenting challenges. And as you can see, when you start to work on yourself, it cascades through to other people and most importantly, our children. That when we can show up in a particular way for ourselves, then our children learn to show up in the family in that particular way. So if you're interested in sticking around, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can access guidance to do this work. For years, I've been learning about myself, and I continue to do so because I believe that personal evolution is like an onion. There's always more layers to peel back. So I bring a ton of personal experience And I've also studied life coaching through American Institute Elementum. And a few years back, I became a certified adult educator. So hopefully I can provide information and guidance in a nice, engaging way. My newest course that I would like to share with you is called Care for the Mother Within. It's currently open for enrollment. It's a punchy 4-week course where I guide you through self-exploration and awareness, embodiment practices, and using some great healing modalities to shed shame. So the sessions are really short. You can feel confident that you can fit it in around being a busy mum. It's an opportunity to get real and judgment-free with our struggles, shed shame, develop self-compassion, and really allow that radiant mother to return. So in a collective, we can see others creating calm, and it allows others to cheer you on. And we create new norms, because when other people in our sphere are doing the same thing as us, or working towards the same thing as us, or wanting to show up and do life in the same way as us, it makes it so much easier for us to do the work. So Care for the Mother Within is an online program. It's predominantly run within a private Facebook group with Zoom calls each week, each of the 4 weeks. So there's resources and workbooks that are emailed to you. So there's 4 interactive sessions, so 1 each week, 30 minutes in duration, and there's 2 time options, so a morning and an evening each week. So you can work around what suits you. Sessions are recorded too, so you can watch a replay if you need to. It's affirmations and music suggestions, embodiment practices, accountability, and also the option to add one-to-one mentoring as well as part of the program if you desire. So if you want to release and dim down some of the guilt, the resentment, the exhaustion, the frustration that shows up in your motherhood journey, then this is for you. If you want to understand a little bit more about why you aren't parenting in the way that you really want to, this is for you as well. And if you want to cultivate a calmer, more connected and cooperative relationship with your children, this is your course. And if you want to navigate your motherhood journey with more compassion, ease, and grace, this is definitely for you. My mission is to support people to begin to feel in control of their emotions and behavior, to be confident to express yourself authentically and from a place of love, and really see that rippled effect through your family. Because whether it's fair or not, we are the center point of our family as the matriarch. Our demeanor sets the mood for our little people and even our partners at times. And you deserve to feel fulfilled and alive and joyful and proud of how you're showing up as a mum. And I do want to preface that as a human being, you are enough. And it's okay to want to transmute some parts of you and change how you show up at times. This work is about supporting you to feel proud of the way you show up as a mom, to have self-compassion and really shine like the bright star that you are through all of the messiness, which is part of motherhood, and as well as the rainbows. We don't just have to shine when our life is easy and going the way we want it to. If we can shine and feel calm and composed through the messiness, like that's where the gold is. Because that from that place, we can be present with whatever comes our way. So there's a lot on this screen. I'm not going to read it all, but basically we go through a different topic each week. The first week is the science behind the mean mum who doesn't mean to be mean. The second week, we go through shedding shame, so out of the dark and into the light. The third week is self-regulation tools and practices. And then week 4 is really about allowing that radiance in and presence and joy and love to be part of the way that you show up as a mama. So prices, because everybody wants to know that. Normally this course is $397, but it's currently at 60% off. So $159 for 4 weeks of magic. It's a huge saving. And you get me live every week with nuggets of wisdom, as well as resources to work through at your own pace, and the private Facebook group for peer connection and support. And I'm doing it at 60% off because I would love, in exchange for this massive discount, for some feedback about this intensive yet supportive group course. So nothing huge, just a feedback form and testimonial at the end. And the reason that I've created this 4-week course is to help more mothers dissolve their motherhood stress, anxiety, and crankiness and achieve that self-awareness, self-compassion, self-acceptance. And I know it's a lot of self, and I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. That's where the magic is. To be the parent that you want to be, and then to evoke the behaviors that you desire in your children, it starts with you. Now, the number one reason that people don't get started working on themselves and their parenting journey is because it's hard to prioritize ourselves. It's hard to prioritize spending money on you, but I've sorted that because we've got 60% off. You can't expect changes in your children and the way that you feel in your mornings, your afternoons, unless you change something. And doing it alone is hard. So that's why there's a collective available here for support so that you can make changes alongside other mums making changes. So basically the program is 4 weeks of potent self-care, wisdom sharing, nourishing connection, and quick, easy practices to incorporate into a busy mum life so that you will feel well cared for, empowered, and confident to mother yourself and your children. And the group program reduces cost for you and also allows me to serve more mamas at once, because I do offer one-to-one sessions, but there's a limit to the number of mothers and women that I can serve in a group course, in a one-to-one capacity, because I'm a mum myself. So having a group course allows me to serve you and you to be served in a more cost-effective way. So I guess the question for you is, will you get $159 value out of these 4 weeks? It's not hard to imagine that you will for that price. The next thing that needs to land in your space, the next nugget of evolution will always find you. It might be this program, it might be something else, but trust that you will know. Maybe you already feel more alive and ready to parent from the heart, and maybe you've got what you needed, or perhaps you desire more. Feel into what's right for you and trust your mama instincts. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. I'll see if I can get rid of my slides so I can see you all bigger and better. Stop share. Yay, there we go. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to. I'll just have a little look and see if there's questions in the chat. There's a link provided to the course. If you know it's for you, jump on that link right now. And even if you don't have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know something that landed for you, something that was new for you, or feel free to write it in the chat. I see we've gone over. I appreciate you sticking with me. So just a reminder that this $159 price point is available for a limited time. It's open till tomorrow night, so Friday night, for anyone who's been on this webinar or anyone who watches the replay to access that on the link that's in the chat, or it will be in the email that comes through to you later today with your ebook and the replay if you would like to watch the replay as well. Now, Candice, I can see that you've got your hand up. Is that because you would like me to unmute you and you have a question, or is that just because you're still cheering?
No, all good. Sorry, thank you. I'll just leave that lower hand. There you go.
Beautiful. Thank
That
you,
was
Sam.
amazing.
Thanks, Candice. See you, Sam. I'll just stick around for another minute in case anybody has a particular question that they want to ask or some more information that they need. I'm so grateful for everybody joining us today, and I'm blessed that our motherhood journeys have crossed paths. So sessions for the Care for Your Mother Within are 30 minutes each. So there's one each week that you can attend. You can attend both if you want, but there's the same session twice a week. So you can choose whether you like morning or evening sessions, and they're about 30 minutes of content. And then there's also time within the group to have, I guess, like hot seat coaching and assistance if you have questions in between time. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're on. I think it's maybe Tuesday nights. Let me check that. So Thursday mornings, 10 to 10:30, and then Tuesday evenings, 8:30 till 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So whichever suits you. I made the evening one fairly late for anyone who needs to get their kids in bed on time. Now, Diane, there was a question from Diane and I've lost it. Okay, that was a question about how long the sessions are, I think. Cool. Got it. Okay, I think that's all of the questions in the chat. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming today, mamas. I hope that you got some wisdom, some aha moments, or whatever you needed from this session. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here.